This is for entertainment purposes only, family. The Mau Mau fighters, at least the last few that are living, are coming out to sue for the Kenyatta era atrocities. So they claim, hey, this article, it's in the Standard today. They claim that Kenyatta's government actually launched a war. Remember, I was telling you this like a couple of weeks ago. They launched a war against the Mau Mau and branded them as terrorists and actually set like a silent policy against them. And the Mau Mau was so shocked when immediately Jomo was released from jail. And I don't know if you've heard those stories of how he wasn't even in jail. He was like being groomed, Mandela style. When he was allegedly released from jail, he actually said that there would be no free land and it would be equal buyer, equal seller, and whatever. And that's how the Mzungus till today own so much of the land. And he had to have been sold out to do that because he went, one of the things people don't know, and I actually wrote about this in my PhD, Jomo actually went to Naivasha soon after, I don't know if it's when he became president or when he was released from jail, and he had a meeting with them, and he was like, you guys, don't worry, we're not going to come for your lands, do what. Compromise like crazy. So they're saying that these are actually 30 Mau Mau fighters who have said they were brutalized by Jomo's government, who actually, because Jomo actually had a silent policy to silence and exterminate the Mau Mau who had just gotten us freedom. I told you this thing was hijacked, family. This is crazy, man. So they say petitioners have brought this petition on their behalf and on behalf of the victims petitioning herein and in the public interest of other victims and relatives of victims of murder, torture, brutality, arbitrary arrest, incarceration, and property deprivation committed by the Jomo Kenyatta regime and the subsequent regime governments against ex-Mau Mau fighters. And that's why the story of the Mau Mau is not taught in schools. And the Mau Mau was just not Ati Agikoyo. It was all able-bodied fighters from all nations because they weren't tribes. They were actual nations who had their own rulership, their own way of running things and stuff like that. And then they say that there's this guy, Mwenda 90, told the court he was Field Marshal Mwariama during the Mau Mau uprising. And he recalled that when Jomo was released from prison in 1961, he immediately declared that no land would be given for free. This shocked many landless Mau Mau fighters who had expected his government to address the land question amicably. And this is why I keep saying we're still in the British colonial system. This is their neo-colonial system where they have Oreos who look like us but bow to them. And that's why the system in Kenya is what it is. And this is why our ancestors are bringing us back into fighting. This is so terrible, man. And then he says that Kenyatta's government actually had a silent policy, like chini ya maji, to exterminate the Mau Mau fighters. And he said Kenyatta's government killed and brutalized ex-Mau Mau fighters even after they had laid down their weapons and posed no threat to the new administration. In his own words, he says the repression of Mau Mau and the consequent silencing of their history was the outcome of a cautiously orchestrated policy of Jomo Kenyatta's government targeting the remaining Mau Mau leaders. And that's how we entered the neo-colonial system, family. But everything is paid for here on this earth. People don't go and pay for in these things in the afterlife. It's paid here. And the time is now. You know, I told you guys, remember when I told you about how the so-called mother of the nation cut the locks of Field Marshal Modoni, who was the only female general in the Mau Mau revolution? And I told you it was some kind of ritual? And guys were here saying, Sijui, it's Jabba. Yo. The people who got us this semi-freedom were done so dirty. But I'm glad things are being corrected now. And by the way, before I forget, they also asked the courts if they can advertise in papers so that other Mau Mau's fighters who are out there, you know, a lot of them had to go into hiding. They were literally genocided. So a lot of them went into hiding. So they wanted to publish this so that in newspapers and advertise so that other Mau Mau fighters who are still around or their families who have records of their torture or extermination can join the case. But so far, there are 30. Those are the heroes we should be celebrating and honoring. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but the Mau Mau revolution was actually fought by 7 seers who used supernatural means to get us that freedom. Otherwise, we'd have gone into an apartheid South Africa situation. And at the end of that, they wrote a constitution, which they delivered, one of them delivered to Jomo, and it's being kept under lock and key by the so-called mother of the nation, and she'd better release that constitution. Anyway, it's time for justice. If you know, you know.